Welcome back, everybody, to the Z-Man Show, as Adam and I are going to talk the 2019 film Terminator Dark Fate. And yes, I know we're almost a year after this, but I had put this movie off for a while, Adam, and I didn't really know, honestly, if I really wanted to watch it, because and by the way, spoilers, we're just going to spoil the hell out of this movie. We're going to talk it, and we're going to talk a little bit about this movie and when it comes to expectations and overall movie quality. And so if you haven't seen it yet, maybe we can help make up your mind real quick if you want to see it or not. So here we go. Yeah, so, Adam, I had found out not long after this movie came out that they were killing off John Connor in the beginning. And what did you think when you saw that scene? What were you thinking after seeing T1 and T2 and being a fan of the franchise?
Honestly, for me, it felt unnecessary. To me, like, I don't know why you had to do it. Well, I know why they did it. They did it to usher in a new character, and I'm sure we'll get into that later.
We will.
But it felt like if you're going to make a Terminator film, you don't have to kill John Connor. And I, before we go too much further, my opinion was pretty positive, but I still felt like you didn't need to do that. That was unnecessary.
It's true. I mean, so we can get it just straight off the block again, like you said, because we're going to get into a bunch of details and so forth. If you're kind of wondering, I mean, when it came to, so James Cameron himself said that he felt this was more of a sequel to his T1 and T2 films, and they were basically negating everything else in between. So that means Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, gone. Terminator Salvation, gone. Terminator Genesis, gone. All three. Remember, Genesis was supposed to be part of a three-part trilogy, and they didn't continue with it because it didn't really make the money they wanted to. And I'm not going to say it bombed, but they also had some mistakes there with marketing and whatever. But either way, they're pretty much picking up after T2. But I was just mentioning to you, Adam, I think if I hadn't known that John Connor was going to die, I would have honestly been raging just as much as I think a lot of the other fan base was.
And to be perfectly honest, I knew he died too, and I think because of that, it spoiled the experience a little less for me. Like yeah. I remember watching the clip of his death scene on YouTube, and I'm honestly thinking, why, guys, why'd you do that?
It was kind of odd too, don't you think? I mean, no, mind you, everything between making Linda Hamilton look like she was in her early 40s around that time probably, and making young John Connor look just like he looked like he walked just off the set of T2. It looked fabulous. Yeah. And I heard there were actually some extra scenes, but I hear when you start getting into a lot more movement, the whole facial recognition and all that good stuff gets a little crazy. So they cut those scenes.
They had to cut it out.
But I also thought that's what kind of made that scene a little awkward. And because I'm thinking to myself, if you think back to T2, Sarah was all about like staying off the grid and, living in these like no-name locations and with these random friends that she met back down in Mexico and whatever, and she found those ties, had weapons and so forth. And it's like, it almost looks like they're on like holiday at some villa or something like that, right? They're just kind of hanging out at the bar. And then suddenly just around the corner, here comes Arnold. And I'm just like, huh? And obviously she puts a few shots off, which we all know is not going to take down a T-800, not even the older models like Arnold. And then he pulls that shotty and just downs him just like that. And furthermore, he doesn't even bother to take out Sarah as well.
Yeah, and so I guess here's my thought on that. Like, if you're going to take down John, and that's the only thing you care about, I mean, like the biggest reason Sarah was important in the first Terminator is that she was going to give birth to John. Right. Like beyond that was her contribution to the future. So if you're just a cybernetic machine designed to prevent a human uprise, I mean, it's probably, you get John, more or less, that's good enough. So I'm actually okay with him being like, my mission's done. And then the other thing I'll point out is a lot of what they did with that character to justify it is that this was actually one of the things I liked about Dark Fate, is that in Terminator 1 and 2, or in Terminator 2, they actually succeeded in bringing down Skynet. Mm-hmm. And so I honestly believe part of the reason that the T-800 just backs off after his directive is done is there's no central intelligence sending in programming. So once his directive's done, the thing that sent him out initially is gone. So he's got nothing else to do. So I think at that point, like, that machine's just like, what now?
And that would make sense because that's pretty much what ends up happening. What is it, about 45 minutes before the end of the movie, we get a reappearance of Arnold, and he's been sending these coordinates and messages to Sarah along the way to help her know when other Terminators are coming in. To our current world, so that she can take him out, and that's been her mission. And he explains that he wanted to give her purpose because he realized that he took her purpose away when he killed John. Now again, this is all kind of poetic, and kind of makes some sense, I guess. But here's my thing: when you back up to Terminator 2 and the last moments, and God, talk about emotional building. I mean, who thought you would feel something for a true cyborg amongst Arnold, if
Right.
anybody else? And I'll be damned when he was those final moments and they took out the T-1000 and the music's playing. That's another problem I have with this movie is music. I'll get to that in a second. But the music's coming in and you can tell like they took him out the T-1000 and he goes, "No, there's one more." And John's like, "No, you can't." You've seen this relationship that John's been building with Arnold's character, Uncle Bob, if we will, Uncle Bob.
Yeah, I remember.
And
Yeah.
because he never had a father, and Kyle was dead. He never had a chance, and so he makes the noblest move, even as cyborg. I mean, obviously he puts logic before anything else, but he lowers himself into he tells Sarah to lower him into the mold, so that way there's no possible way that the apocalypse can ever happen. At least so he thinks, right? And I'm telling you, the
Mhm.
way the music bros in and he's lowering himself down, that was a tear coming down. I mean, that was a great scene. I mean, if you're into the crying in movies and stuff like that, but it was just wonderful. And this one, I just between all the action that was going on, the CGI, you're trying to get to know Grace, this augmented cyborg from the future, which clearly she loves. And she loves Danny's character and wants nothing more than to protect her. I thought it was interesting towards the end when we find out that the two were actually already friends and they already knew each other.
Mhm.
And and in fact, well, not just friends. Danny basically saved her, right, and was
Right.
her caretaker pretty much for many years until she was old enough to fight. So very neat parts of the movie like that. But when you come back, and I'm just thinking, wouldn't have Arnold in T2, before he dismantled himself, known that there are other cyborgs that were going to be making their way back? I mean, it could be argued that no, maybe Skynet wouldn't have given them any more information what they needed to. They just would have said, "Go kill John. That's all you need to know. Bye." Um,
No, and I think it's an excellent point. And honestly, like we talked a little bit before this, and I think it's the loose end that doesn't get tied up. Why was there another T-800? If Skynet had sent this back, what was it? And I don't think there's a convenient answer to explain it. So I think it's fair to call that a loose end.
Loose end.
And to be perfectly fair, one of the reasons why I generally liked it was kind of in comparison to the other Terminator movies. And the thing that I really appreciated is though even though they removed the legacy of John Connor, to me what I liked about this was that if you've seen Rise of the Machines T3, the big conclusion of that is no matter what we do, Skynet is going to take over.
Right.
And what I liked about Dark Fate was it actually took the approach, no, we actually took down Skynet.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was able to accept the death of John Connor, even though I thought it was unnecessary. I thought I could have taken a different approach because they at least made John and Sarah Connor's actions matter in Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, whereas in the other timeline, all they really did was delay the inevitable. So I liked that.
So, and I guess that's a difference of opinion between the viewers, right? What do you stick more? Is Skynet the one and only? Was it the only outcome it could ever be, or do you accept this new thought where Legion, this new entity that creates some kind of military-based AI? So instead of anyway, it's just a little bit different than Skynet, but ultimately same premise. And they take over. So, and really it makes sense because there's always going to be some asshole out there ready to create some new and improved machinery or AI system, and it could go haywire and take over. And so I can buy into that. The question is, was it necessary? And I think we already kind of said it. No, it wasn't necessary, but they did. So they did, and here we had Terminator Dark Fate. So we had some reprisals of some roles right here. We had Linda Hamilton actually come back from hiding. I heard she went into fitness training and a regimented no-carb diet for almost a year before they even started filming this.
I mean, it makes sense, especially I haven't been following her roles lately, but I don't think she's had
Yeah.
anything as gritty and aggressive as this
Nope.
since really Terminator 2, and that was what 30 years ago almost. So I
Absolutely.
mean, it would make sense that she'd have to get in the ship shape to be ready for this because the storyline in this is she never stopped. You know,
Right.
Archie did briefly, and then John died, and suddenly she's back at it again. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that she had to spend a lot of time getting
So
ready.
here's my thing. I was watching this movie. I already knew John was going to die. I tried to put it past me. It's been almost a year since I've heard this information. I'm like, let's just watch this movie. Let's just give it a fresh view and let's just try and be non-biased. But I couldn't help but just along the way, just have these feelings coming back of all those angry, viewers of the movie and talking about the whole, because around that 2019 is like girl power and femininity and get the men out of there, evil men, and or the Terminator can be an evil guy, but let's get all the girls together, and they pretty much did. They bring in Linda Hamilton, they bring in Mackenzie Davis, I believe was her name, as Grace, which she
Mhm.
did a wonderful job, but so she's there too, and also there's the future female resistance leader. Resistance leader is another female. I'm like, hey guys, are we going a little one-sided here? I just felt kind of odd. I mean, there's no problem. Sure, a female could lead the resistance if everything worked out right, which apparently in this story it does. It does for Danny. But I was just like, man, I feel like you're just trying a bit too hard here. And Arnold doesn't even come in until like the last barely third of the movie, and even then he still seems kind of stripped from his kind of masculinity and his kick-assery. I mean, true, he gets some work done, but as an older model, you can only get so much. And let's face it, that Rev 9 model is menacing.
I totally agree. So, kind of a mix between the T800 from Terminator 1 and the T1000 from Terminator 2. Had the T800 exoskeleton, but also with a liquid metal kind of outer structure.
Yep.
And when the two materials were together, the entire thing could shape shift like the T1000 could. However, it could also separate its liquid metal from its exoskeleton, and its exoskeleton could do one thing while its liquid metal did another. And so, unfortunately, because that exoskeleton was still there, I think from a survivability perspective, Robert Patrick's T1000 in Terminator 2 was still a little bit harder to kill. But
Yeah.
in terms of like being able to do a lot of different things, I think it was a Swiss Army knife with a little bit more tools than Robert Patrick's T1000, even if maybe not quite as tough, if that makes any
I
sense.
I agree, and you're right. So I would agree that the T1000 probably was harder to kill because there was no inner skeleton. But the idea that you could be fighting technically two Terminators at the same time, which makes sense in the story why they brought back Arnold. Why they had Grace as well. I mean, Grace can't take them both on. She's not even a Terminator herself. She's just an augmented human.
Yeah, yeah, cybernetic capabilities. Agreed.
And it was neat to see that also Grace wasn't just I can just do anything I want and get away with it, with her strength and her powers. It came at a cost. She was built to basically kick ass for a short period of time, and then she'd get kind of downgraded and basically start to deteriorate, and if she didn't get the right medications and so forth.
Yeah, and I know that you had an issue with kind of the passing of the torch from one group of characters to another, but I will say like Danny, I agree with you, didn't do much for me, but I actually did like Grace. I thought she was pretty interesting. And like you said, she had character flaws that were she had character flaws in addition to like power limitations, and she was kind of a fresh concept. She was maybe one of the few things about this movie that was actually fresh, in my opinion. So I did like her.
I did like
Um,
Grace. I liked her mission and what she was after to do, which was completely protect her and honestly protecting her mother in some ways, or at least a second mother
right.
to her. And so that you're right, she was fully convincing. It's not that Danny wasn't convincing. Well, actually, maybe it is a little bit. I lie. Maybe that was that problem. But because honestly, she's just like she said, I'm a nobody, and that's fine at some levels. Like you can be a nobody and still come to rise to power. Does anybody feel a Star Wars theme going on here?
Right, right. And
Oh
and to
God.
be fair, that's kind of what John was in Terminator 2 as well. So I think the issue I had with it is not necessarily the feasibility of it, but like why did we need to do it
Yeah.
again? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like we already did this once. Why are we now
Yeah.
redoing it?
I mean, really, honestly, I don't know what's, to be honest, I am being honest. I'm always honest on the Z-Man show. But what I'm trying to say is I think they should have went into, let's see John's rise of power. Can we see how John came to
Yeah.
power? What trials did he have to go through before? I mean, you could even show it in a segmented kind of time jump or something like that, or I don't know, or even you could even do some time travel in there too if you wanted to. I don't know, to get a little crazy, but to just have to go and start over with another set of characters, then this is just a whole not, like you were saying earlier, Adam. This is like a Terminator universe. This is no longer
Yeah.
a Terminator sequel. It's no longer the T
Right.
three that should have been but wasn't but is now. No, it is just another universe where things could have gone another way. Which I even hear they're going to try and do that with Star Wars. Did you hear about how I think they're giving Lucas some power to redo some of the back trilogy movies? Um,
I did. I did, and it's fun. That is a great analogy because I've read that that's effectively what I don't know how much power James Cameron had in this last one, but I effectively heard that part of the reason they did Dark Fate the way they did is because there was some concern about the direction that the franchise took T3 and moving on. And like I said, I don't know that that makes it an excellent movie, and I would never say it's as good as T1 or T2. Like
nope.
if you're looking for those, just only watch those two and don't watch any of the others. But
Yep.
like the thing I still want to reiterate that I appreciated is that it at least made the actions in one and two
Yeah,
matter.
I suppose.
And I was able to forgive it a little bit because of that. But like as far as your criticisms, I think they're completely valid. I think they just hit you more than they hit me, if that makes
It
any
does,
sense.
and I stay really true to those older movies, and when you're leading up, and I don't appreciate these production companies and so forth
It's
coming forward, and then like honestly trying to treat us like we're stupid. Like, oh, you didn't know it, but it was really this all along. Like, no, it's like no, you didn't know, but you're full of shit, and you just went in for a money cash grab, honestly, and that's pretty much the end of it. So whatever, tomato tomato, they got their agendas, we have ours, and we choose whether to pay for this product. And I think I read a review from one of the persons on IMDb, and it was titled "We Did This," which is so funny because it kind of praise a little homage to I Am Legend. Yeah, we did
yeah,
this, Anna. God didn't do this. We did this. We tried to cure cancer,
right.
and it's the same. And honestly, it is the fans sometimes that fuel these production companies. So honestly, we are at fault as well because we pay the money, which then pays the salaries and gives them all this money and power to then do it again and again and again until they flop and fail so many times that they get the message. Okay, we get it. You guys are done. We get it.
Well, it's kind of like the logic behind, the Cubs winning their first World Series in 108 years a few years back. A buddy of mine from Chicago said, part of the problem with the Cubs is that people still show up to the games. It's like, if someone's producing a quality of product that you don't like, I mean, one of the best things you could do is just stop buying that product. So yeah, I agree. Like if if we're willing to tolerate the drop in quality in Terminator movies after Terminator 2, then they will continue to come out. I completely agree.
Absolutely. And let's face it, I mean, if they stop making movies, then we'd have no more entertainment. So it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, I think, in a lot of ways, because we bitch too much, and then they're like, okay, fine, we're not going to make more movies, and then we're like, where are our movies?
Right.
So we're never going to be satisfied. And Adam, we don't usually rip too many movies down, but this one, although it is watchable, it is entertaining, it had some interesting points to the story. It was unnecessary, but it was a thrill ride. And now, mind you, if you don't like CGI, you may want to stay away from this one because although in the very beginning parts of the movie it feels like it's going to be fairly balanced between practical and CGI, and there was a car chase in there, a lot like the T2 car chase, but all the same. I was like, okay, this could be good, let's see where this goes. But then they start battling on a sea. I forget the name of the plane, but it's those huge military planes. Or
A Cessna,
well, no,
maybe.
it's the huge cargo planes. They're like
Oh no, I know what you're
I don't know if
talking
they're called
about.
C
Sorry.
200s or C3, but anyways, the point is, it's just a massive plane, and you got battles up in the air. You got another fueling airplane that comes up alongside it, and you got people flying in the airplane. Again, the logistics and all the craziness, the idea that they worked it all out is honestly just cinematic craziness and also very amazing. But at the same time, it kind of can sometimes pull you from the movie, and then you're just kind of like, really, this this
Yeah.
is this is the battle scene. Again, I liked some CGI, and when done well, I don't mind it so much. I thought it was done well because I heard they spent a ton of money on it. But again, there was quite a bit. It's just like, if you just try to go a little more practical, you could probably draw us in a lot more and be like, hey, you know what? It sucks they killed John. It sucks, they brought in an all woman cast pretty much, but but they did the movie justice when it came to the battle scenes and this. I don't know. It's a mix of craziness in this movie. I call it.
And I will say that if you're taking the perspective of inevitability, then I think it makes sense why you would favor the other timeline. That went from T3 anyway. Because if it is inevitable, why not just make it Skynet? Whereas I think the thing that I appreciated about it is I felt like it gave more of a glimmer of hope. So yeah, if you're watching this with the expectation that the apocalypse is unpreventable and only delayable, there is the question of why do you go through all this? But I think for me, to me, like the reason I thought it gave meaning to those previous movies is because it said, well, they prevented one, why can't they just prevent another?
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Well, and I guess it must have mattered too, because although the apocalypse was still going to happen, your point of to a glimmer of hope there was, and it was Danny. And otherwise, there would have been no point for Legion to send back, one of these Rev 9s to take her out. It knows that it's going to ultimately be its end. She is. Her and the Resistance. Right. So, again, a lot of neat things still played on, repeated, but all the same. A pretty fun movie. I think we were talking scores a little earlier, Adam. I think I nailed this movie around a 6.5.
Yeah. I might give it a 7, but I wouldn't criticize. Like you could talk me down to a 6.5. It's not a hard 7.
Yeah, I even kind of I went between the two as well, and anywhere between a 6 and 7, I think, which again is a very watchable movie, especially today's standards when they've redone so many of our beloved franchises, everything from Total Recall and Star Wars and now Terminator as well. The only question will be, will they continue to try and mess with this franchise, or will they finally just let it be and let it die?
I'm with you, Mike. Put it to rest. It's one of those things. Like I think, like I said, I think I enjoyed the movie a little bit more than you. But if you want to do a movie with machines from the future, call it something else at this point. Like we don't need to use the Terminator name anymore. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because the story, and they've pretty much taken the story in every direction they probably could, especially with Genesis. They did a bunch of time travel bullshit, which was also negating previous movies and. It just kind of starts to lose you a little bit. You're like, listen, guys, what are we following? Are we following this one or this one? That's kind of how I kind of felt with the Halloween series, honestly, because after the first two and they kill off Michael and Loomis, and they said, well, we can't stop this. We got a great name here, so we'll make it like an anthology of Halloween different stories, and that's what 3 was all about. It was just a different story of something crazy going down on Halloween. It didn't work. Yeah. So 4, then they brought back Michael, and they just. As obviously they cannot foresee the complete future as a writer or as a director or production company, but man, you can't help it, man. When they find that cash cow, they want to milk it to the end.
Now, and that's exactly what this is. And to me, I enjoyed it. I thought some of the new things that they were in it, like the focus on using surveillance technology, maybe it felt a little bit more modern. But if you're looking for that old school classic Terminator, good luck. I think if you're gonna enjoy this, you got to go into it knowing it's going to be something different.
That's true. And just talking about just a few of the other cool aspects of the movie. So when you're talking about the surveillance, I thought that was neat because immediately when they started getting away, when they left by Chopper, they left by this or that, and I was like, man, how is he going to find them? And it's just amazing when you stop and you think about all the different things between photographs and every camera on every street and cell phones that's tracking it, just all these pieces. And he was able to put it together every single time because obviously it's a super cyborg. And once he got into one of those data centers, it was just a done deal. So that was very believable. I got it. I understood it. And, at least they stayed true to the Terminator and its capabilities. And I'll tell you, by the end, when they're even still trying to take that thing out, even when they stabbed it with that thing from Grace, her power source, it still didn't really want to die. I mean, Arnold even had to kind of fully seal the deal by, pushing him down that little electricity field or something like that in one of those turbines, and then which pretty much smoldered them just down, in their metal. Pretty crazy scene, but also a very cool scene. And I think kind of gave Sarah some peace in some ways too. I mean, her son's killer was dead, but also, I guess she kind of felt something because, it was willing to go above and beyond for humanity. So that was good too.
Yeah, and I thought like I'm with you. Like I felt like Danny was not necessarily like she didn't do anything more than John Connor did in Terminator 2, and I felt like it was Grace and Sarah were the more interesting components of it,
Yeah,
and even Carl, who was the eventual name for Arnold's T-800,
yeah,
was interesting to me. So I think if you're really locked on to that interesting lead, I think this is best case scenario. This is a generous way of putting it. This is Danny's rise. So
yeah,
you're either going to be able to accept the fact that you basically have another John Connor coming around, or you're just going to be hung up on the fact of why do we have another John Connor? And I think that
yeah,
that I think I don't know that she was all that special. I thought it was the characters around her that were more interesting.
yeah. I agree too. So, if they want to make another Terminator movie, please don't. But if you are going to make one, I try to keep it with as much straight face as I could with that comment. But if you are going to try and make one, then let's show like then Danny's rise to. I mean, if this is the character you have chosen, then show her and show
Yeah.
some of the, get a little crazy. And see, that's the thing that they may run into the problem because they kind of already did it. If you get a chance to back up and watch Terminator Salvation, Adam. See, it kind of shows a future John, which is Christian Bale,
Yeah.
and he's already kind of leading the resistance, and it's showing his. So you see, they kind of already did it. So maybe that's why they were afraid to go that route because if they did,
Maybe.
they might say like, "Oh, this is just a repeat of kind of Salvation in some ways."
Yeah.
So I understand why they did what they did. I just don't know why they did what they did.
Yeah. No, I
I know
agree.
there's nothing much to say about it. It is what it is.
So yeah, and I think like it's amazing how we liked and didn't like the same things about the movie. I think it's just
Yeah,
we picked and chose different things that were important to us, and I think that's the only reason we're different. And
yeah.
I agree with you. Like if you're looking for same old Terminator, good luck.
Yeah, and if anything, I think the ones who are outraged against this movie and what they try to do, you're probably like 6'5". Are you out of your freaking minds? And we
Right.
might be, and I usually am more generous on these films just because there's more to it than just. I mean, story is huge. Yes, it is. Don't get me wrong, but there was a lot other great. There's a lot of great things that were happening in this movie as well. And I can't dock it down to. There's no such thing as a one for this movie, or even a two or three. I mean, you can be angry, but you can't take away
Yeah.
from the cinematic value of what this movie tried to accomplish, which was very, very cool. That's why whenever I see reviews like a one, like people that give a movie either a 1 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, I don't feel you're balanced. You're radical.
Yeah.
You're giving it all or nothing. That's not how it works. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this. It's not. There's a reason why there's a scale. Um,
Yeah.
but by the way, I didn't say you're wrong. I mean, you obviously hated the movie, and if you hate it that much, then give it your one. You gave it your
Yeah.
opinion, and you'll lower the score as such because there's no other way, better way than to show your true voice when you give a 1 out of 10, and you have 10 reviews and 5 of those are 1s. You're gonna tank down super fast, and it will let the people know that no, do not go and see this movie. So I understand why you do what you do. I really do.
Yeah. And just to not to sound like a broken record, but I evaluate it as a standalone movie, and I can tell you there are worse movies out there that had a weak lead character supported by strong supporting characters that were more well received than this. And I think the name Terminator is ultimately why this movie wasn't well received as it was, and that's important. And there's a legacy to remember.
Yeah.
But as a standalone movie, I don't. I personally don't think it was that bad. I think the things that were bad about it were that it was associated with the Terminator franchise.
And let's face it, they named it Terminator because that's what's going to draw the people. They're not going to,
Right.
if you named it Grace or Grace's Rise, or, I mean, they just be like,
Yeah.
who's Grace and why do I care?
Right.
So we know why they tagged the Star Wars name, the Terminator name, the Jurassic Park name. They know why because that's what you know. And that's what. But I will tell you, after you're seeing movies like these, it does help you kind of appreciate um, older cinema and some of the originals and also look back to see why certain things were so great at other points in time, whether it be the original or the third movie in the franchise. It doesn't matter, but it'll help you to understand and tell you. It kind of tells a story of Terminator in general when you're able to see all the films through like this. So yeah, so like I said, cool movie. Yeah, maybe it didn't meet all expectations, but it was an entertaining thrill ride. I'll give him that. They had some pretty cool little projects going on in this one. So So we want to thank you guys for coming out and talking through some of this. Make sure you let us know, what did you think about Terminator Dark Fate if you did see it. Does it rank up there with Against Salvation and Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, or is it even better than some of the originals in your opinion? And if so, what was your draw? Was it the characters? Was there some emotional moments for you? Let us know what you think. Adam, any other thoughts?
Nope. I think I've said my piece. I agree with you. Leave the comments in the section. We'd be curious to hear what you have to say. I know it's not a very popular flick. People are welcome to disagree with me. Let us know what you think.
Oh, and that's one thing YouTube does well. They do disagree.
Yep.
So thanks again for joining us for the Z-Man Show. Make sure every Wednesday come out. We do different talks on movies, and we'll be doing some other interesting topics coming up here in the future as we're getting out of our horror movie madness of October and early November, I should say. I also do Walking Dead reviews for World Beyond and Fear the Walking Dead, and so make sure to check those out on late Sunday night, early Monday morning. So thanks again for joining us, and we will catch you guys at the next review.
See you on Wednesday.